Welcome back to another StarWarsUnlimited deck build, and today you have got my final deck before set 4 releases, so I thought, let's make it a banger. And for that very reason, I thought, why not bring you my Maul deck? This Maul deck doesn't just let you play one Maul, nor two Mauls, but 3 different Darth Mauls. This deck looks to harness the power of the dark side and just win by playing out these big Force units. And there was no way I wasn't going to make a deck on the main man, Maul himself. I've literally got his map right here. And come on, he's like one of the coolest characters in Star Wars. So the original inspiration for Maul ECL was actually done by somebody else who won a tournament like 2 months ago. And I've linked their deck in the description for you. However, this is my build and my upgraded version, using that for inspiration. But before we jump into the leader, the base, and well, how the deck likes to play, if you enjoy StarWarsUnlimited content, make sure to like and subscribe because, well, set 4 is literally about to drop. And I'm going to be releasing so many more deck builds and openings, and I just don't want you guys to miss out. With that being said, let's crack on to this leader. So for the leader, Maul, what does he do? So he's got an action that reads, attack with a unit, it gains Overwhelm for this attack. You may be thinking, what is Overwhelm? Overwhelm is you attack into a unit and any of the remaining damage that goes over their health goes to their base. So for example, this is our field. They got a Death Star Stormtrooper with 1 HP. We've got Colonel Yularen with 2 attack. We can activate Maul, meaning I can attack with Yularen, he gets Overwhelmed, defeats that Stormtrooper, and because Yularen has 2 attack and the Stormtrooper only has 1 health, the remaining damage goes to their base. Because we like to ramp and get these high attack and high HP units out, being able to overwhelm with them to just clear the board while doing damage to their base at the same time is lovely. However, this is what I love about Maul. When he flips, he is a 6/6 on 6. So yes, he's a beefy boy, hitting for a lot of damage. He has Overwhelm, and each other friendly unit gains Overwhelm. I know, it's not the most impactful ability, however, that 6/6 is actually kind of crazy. Because he has that really high stat line, that is why this deck likes to ramp. We try to get this Maul out as soon as possible. If we get this Maul out even a turn earlier, it puts so much pressure onto them. Especially when you equip him with this card, making him a 9/9. Moving on to our base, we run the 25 HP Energy Conversion Lab. This one reads, epic action, play a unit that costs 6 or less from your hand, give it Ambush for this phase. For those who don't know what Ambush is, it means you can play that card, you still have to pay its cost, and then attack immediately into a unit. The reason that's so good is because, well, Darth Maul lets you attack 2 units at once, so you can ambush and attack 2 things. Oh, it's so good. There's also some really nice other things we like to ambush out in this deck, but we'll get to those later. So that's our leader and our base done. Let's crack on to these ground units. Kicking things off with the ground units is a 1 cost, and where you've seen it already, that is 3 Death Star Stormtroopers. This card's just a solid 1 cost 3/1 stat line. I mean, that's all to say about it. It's like Greedo for the deck without the ability. But the reason it's quite nice in this deck is because he works quite well with Maul. Being able to activate Maul, giving this Overwhelm and hit Overslank is pretty lovely. What I like doing, I mentioned Greedo, this is really good against things that play like Greedo or these other low HP turn 1 plays, because turn 1 you play them out, they play out whatever they do, you claim initiative, you ready up, activate Maul, clear their board and do damage to their base. Moving on to our next ground unit is a 2 cost, and that is 3 Ryloth Militia. So this card's a 2/3 with Raid 1. That Raid 1 means it gets +1 when attacking, essentially making it a 3/3, and that's pretty much the best stat line you can get for a 2 costing card. Moving on to our next 2 cost ground unit, we got 3 Gamorrean Retainers. So this card is a 3/2 solid stat line, however it reads, while you control another green unit, this unit gains Sentinel. So it's essentially just always a Sentinel in this deck, because the amount of green units we play. Not just that, it combos beautifully with another card in this deck. So the card that combos beautifully with this card is Huyang. We will talk about Huyang more in a minute, but what it does is when played, choose another friendly unit. While this unit's in play, that chosen unit gets +2/+2. So if you got on turn 1 Retainer, turn 2 you go Huyang, picking him, he becomes a 5/4 and then gets Sentinel because of Huyang. Like, that combo is just gross. Moving on to our 3 cost ground units, we're going to kick things off with 2 Phase 3 Dark Troopers. This card is a 3/3 stat line for 3, which is okay, but it's got Sentinel, and more importantly reads, when combat damage is dealt to this unit, if it survives, give an experience token to it. Also, it quickly becomes a beefy Sentinel. There's two reasons why this is in here. First one is, well, it's a Sentinel to slow up some decks, but more importantly, he works so well with Maul. Why? Because, well, maybe they play a unit out that's got 2 attack. Well, you're going to activate Maul, you're going to Overwhelm with him, probably defeat, doing that damage to base, and he survives, then meaning he's got more attack for the next turn. I found though, while using this deck, 90% of the time you're just playing it out to slow them up while you're waiting to get the ramp online or maybe a big unit. Moving on to our next free cross ground unit, we got 2 Fifth Brother. I mean, it's a Dark Side Force deck. I had to get some Inquisitors in here. What's he do? He's a 2/4 stat line, which is okay for free cost. However, he gets raid 1 for each damage on him, and on attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit and 1 damage to another ground unit. So he's always damaging them while boosting himself up. He actually works really well with Maul, because you can activate Maul, meaning he gets Overwhelm, attack, do the damage to him, so he bumps up the free attack, do 1 damage to them, he'll defeat excess damage, he'll normally survive, meaning the next turn he's then hitting for like 5 or 6 damage. So I really like Fifth Brother, and to be honest, he does work a lot better than the Grand Inquisitor deck, but he's still very valuable here, especially if you give him Fallen Lightsaber, because then you've got a 5/7 that's continuously getting stronger, and he's Force unit, meaning this will go online with him. Yeah, such a good card. And at the end of the day, he is a Dark Side Force user, and it's a Dark Side deck. Moving on to our next free cost ground unit, that's 3 Hu Yangs. Here it is. I absolutely adore Hu Yang in this deck. He does so much for it. So just in case you missed it, what's he do? When played, choose another friendly unit. While this unit's in play, that chosen unit gets +2/+2. So as we already know, with Gamorrean Retainer, insane. Retainer comes a 5/4 Sentinel. But there's 2 things I love doing with Hu Yang. One of them is, you give Fifth Brother +2/+2, making him a 4/6, who's continuously making himself stronger. Or, what I absolutely adore doing with him, is you ramp early, right? So you're at 6 resources. So you deploy your Maul. For 3 resources, you play out Hu Yang, making him a 8/8. You've still got 3 resources left. Let's give Fallen Lightsaber, making him a 11/11. Not just that. Remember, I said we've ramped. So you've got an 11/11 leader out early with Overwhelm. Oh, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Moving on to our final free costing ground unit. It's arguably one of the most important cards in the deck. That's Super Laser Technician. So I mentioned this is a ramp deck, so of course this card needs to be in here. So it's a 2/1 stat line that reads, when defeated, you may put it into play as a resource and ready it. So yes, when he's defeated, boom, he's a readied resource. It being ready is crazy. What I have done a number of times is actually activated ECL, ambushing out my Super Laser Technician, defeating whatever they play turn 1, and then having him ready as a resource. Doing that, just, yeah, it allows so much value in this deck. Okay, moving on to our 5 costing ground units. I'm going to start things off with 1 Seventh Sister. So, gonna be honest, she's only in here because I haven't got another Darth Maul. With that being said, she still does a lot of work. So, she's a 3/6 with Saboteur. So, Saboteur allows her to skip past Sentinels, get past shields, whatever. But she also reads, when this unit deals combat damage to an opponent's base, you may deal 3 damage to a ground unit your opponent controls. So ideally, you attack the base, do 3 damage over there. However, there is a big however with this card that actually makes it a lot stronger within this deck. That is, you play it outright, you activate Maul, attack with it, giving it Overwhelm. She can attack whatever's out there. If she defeats it and the Overwhelm damage hits their base, her other ability activates. Because you've just done combat damage to their base, meaning you can then ping another 3 damage to something else they control. So I mentioned we haven't got another Darth Maul. Our next 5 cost unit, can you guess it? That's right, Darth Maul. So if I had another Darth Maul, I would drop a 7th Sister for him. So what does he do? This unit can attack 2 units instead of 1. Because he's attacking 2 units, all the damage is dealt at the same time. So if he attacks into 2 different things, their damage goes to him at the same time, his 5 goes to theirs at the same time. If we haven't activated ECL yet for our Super Laser Technician, ECLing out Maul to ambush into 2 things is so good. So good. And of course, well, if he survives, give him Fallen Lightsaber, makes him a 8/9 that can attack 2 things at once. How insane is that? Moving on to our 6 costing ground units, we've got 2 Kylo Rens. So this card is a 6/7 stat line, and well, he's another Dark Side Force user that reads, while playing in this unit, ignore the villainy aspect penalty if you control Rey. That's never going to come up within this deck because, well, we haven't got Rey. And on attack, give a unit +2 for this phase. If it's a non-villainy unit, give an experience token to it. That does come up on one of our space units, as we get to later. However, my number one thing I like doing with Kylo Ren is that we've got our Maul deployed, right? You activate ECL, so you can ambush out Kylo. On his attack, on the ambush, you can give this +2 for the phase, making it an 8/6. He then ambushes in, defeats whatever, you've then got an 8 attack Maul ready to go. Okay, let's get on to these 7 costing ground units, and these are the best parts of the deck. I'm going to kick things off with one of, and that is one Savage Press. I mean, it's a Maul deck. I can't play a Maul deck without Maul's brother. I'm going to be honest, if you want to run the most competitive version of this deck, you probably drop Savage for something else, but I mean, like I said, it's a Maul deck. I can't not run his brother in here. So, what is he? So he's a 7 cost 7/7 that reads, when played, if you control fewer units than the opponent, ready this unit. So he's suddenly dropping a Savage out and readying him immediately. It's so good. And well, our next card is Darth Vader. Still an extremely pricey card, and I've still only got one. So he's a 5/7 stat line with ambush, and as you guys know, that means he can attack immediately. But when played, search the top 10 cards of your deck for any number of villainy units with a combined cost of 3 or less, and play each of them for free. You don't need me to talk about Vader that much. You all know how insanely strong he is. I mean, look how cool he is as well. But I actually think he's alright for this deck. Like, alright. I've got the next 7 cost card I think is just a lot better. But don't get me wrong. Playing Vader out, ambushing, defeating Sank, and then playing out Sank like our Dark Trooper for free for a Sentinel is just so good. I mentioned our next 7 cost is better, and you can probably guess what's coming. There's 2 Mauls. Yeah, I'm not joking. I actually think this card is better for this deck. Why? So it's 7/6 stat line with ambush and overwhelm, but reads, on attack, you may choose another friendly underworld unit. If you do, all combat damage that would be dealt to this unit during the attack is dealt to the chosen unit instead. We do run a few Underwhelm cards, so you can ping off that damage if you want, but just, yeah, playing out 7 ambushing card is so good. The amount of things this can one-shot is crazy, and because it's got that built-in Overwhelm, it means you can ambush Overwhelm to their base. Moving on to our 8 cost ground units, we've got 1 Emperor Palpatine. I mean, it's a dark side Force deck. He is the dark side of the Force. We can't run this sort of deck without him. What does he do? So he's an 8 cost 6/6. That stat line's not great, but he's got built-in Overwhelm. But more importantly, when played, deals 6 damage divided you choose among enemy units. So you can play him out and do that 6 instantly to 1 unit defeat him, or you can do it, spread it across and just wipe the field. And because we like to ramp, playing this guy out a turn or 2 early and just wiping everything they have is gorgeous. To be honest, if I ran the most competitive version of this deck, I'd probably drop a Savage for the second Emperor Palpatine. And rounding up our ground units, it's something that's been in each one of my last 3 decks now. That is a 9 cost. That is Great Dragon. It's a ramp deck. Like, we had to get Crate in here. So, what does he do? 9 cost, 10/10 with Overwhelm, yet again built in it. Can you tell there's a lot of Overwhelm in this deck? Like, if Maul's not giving it, everything just has Overwhelm. But more importantly, why this card is insanely strong. When an opponent plays a card, you may deal damage equal to that card's cost to the base or ground unit they control. They just have to deal with Crate Dragon. If they don't, they just lose. Like, there's no way about it. That ability is insane. They play out a 9 cost Avenger. Okay, 9 to your base. Maybe they play out their own Palpatine. Oh, okay, that's 8 damage, and I'll defeat that Palpatine that's just come out. 90% of the time, you're going to put their damage onto the base, but it is also good just to wipe the field. So that's our ground units done. Let's jump on to these space units. Starting things off, our space units is a 2 cost, and that is 3 mercenary gunships. So this card is a 3/2 stat line, so a solid space unit turn 1, but action, pay for, take control of this unit. Any player may use this ability, so you need to be aware they may actually pay for to steal it. However, this card's got Underworld, meaning if you ambush out with this Maul, you can actually put the damage onto this gunship. Or maybe you've just attacked a Kylo Ren instead. Kylo Ren can give this +2 and an experience token because it hasn't got that villainy aspect. There are just a couple of things you can do with this card, but at the end of the day, it's just a solid 3/2 stat line turn 1 ship. Moving on to our next space unit is a 3 cost, that is 2 Republic Arc 170s. It's just a solid 3/4 stat line ship. There's 2 options here. You can go for Republic Arc, like I did, or they actually went for the punishing one, which is the Dengar ship with the villainy aspect, and it's got Underworld, so you can ambush with Maul and put the damage onto him. But the reason I put the Republic Arc in here instead is because I just found it came up a few times with Kylo Ren's ability. Given this +2 and the experience token was actually coming up a lot more than, well, the Maul ambush for the Underworld. And rounding up our space units is a 6 cost and another insanely strong card that you guys know all about. That is 3 Ruthless Raiders. This card is a 4/6 stat line space unit that reads, when played and when defeated, deal 2 damage to an enemy base and 2 damage to an enemy unit. This can come out, ping things off the board and be a nuisance in space. Not just that, because we ramp, we can get this out early, meaning 9 times out of 10 it's going to defeat something, and then you've got quite a big ship sitting there that if they defeat, it does another 2 damage. Also, if we play this card out early, it's a really nice card to play with Maul's Overwhelm ability, because they've normally got smaller units out by then, so this can just defeat those units, overwhelm to their base, and then if it gets defeated, you get that other 2 damage ping. Like, yeah, it's just gorgeous. So that's our space units done. Let's crack on to these events and upgrades. Kicking things off with the events and upgrades is a 1 cost, that is 3 Force Throws. So if you watched my last few videos, you know how much I love this card at the moment. So it reads, choose a player. That player discards a card from their hand, then if you control a force unit, you may deal damage equal to that card's cost to the discarded pile. So in my other decks, I told you, more often than not, you discard a card from their hand and deal the damage because, well, most of this deck is force. You can still do that. However, we have got a load, and I mean a load of high costing units within this deck. So more often than not, you actually choose yourself, discarding something like your Savage or your Maul or your Vader, and then ping 7 damage over there. Of course, still use it on them, but I just found I actually used it on myself quite often within this deck. Especially because this combos beautifully with another one of our events, I shall talk to you about later. But at the end of the day, it's a 1 cost removal from anyone's hand, but more importantly, that damage comes in so often. It's also partly why we run 5th Brother in here, because getting out 5th Brother turn 2 and activating this on top of that is just so good. Moving on to our 3 costing events and upgrades, we've got 3 resupplies. What does this card do? Put this event into play as a resource. That's all it does. You may be thinking, it's not loads, but it's so good. It doesn't come into play readied, like Super Laser Technician, so it is exhausted. However, it's another card that means we can get the Maul out a turn early. If we can go turn 2, ambush our Super Laser Technician, we're up to 4 resources, put it into them 5. The next turn, you play resupply, you can then get Maul out on your 3rd turn. Moving on to our next 3 cost events and upgrades, you've already seen it, that is 3 Fallen Lightsabers. For a start, before we even get into what it does, it's a double-sided saber in a Maul deck. I mean, come on, name a more iconic duo. So what does it do? Attached to a non-vehicle unit? Well, yeah, you're going to attach it to one of our many force units. If attached to a force unit, which it probably will be, it gains on attack, deal 1 damage to each enemy ground unit and defending player controls. Oh, and it gives it +3/+3. So if you put it onto our Maul, he becomes a 9/9 that's doing 1 damage to everything with the Overwhelm on top of that. If you put Fallen Lightsaber onto Darth Maul, you have an 8/9 that can attack 2 units at once. Oh, it's not fair. But yeah, because we've got so many force units in this deck, like, you're pretty much safe to put this on anything. But as I mentioned right in the intro, on your 6 resource turn, if you put this onto Maul plus Hu Yang, you've got an 11/11 boss. Moving on to our 5 costing events and upgrades is, well, it's a staple in any green villainy. You know what's coming. 3 Overwhelming Barrages. So what does this card do? Give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. Then it deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among any number of other units. So if you have your Maul out, which you've normally ramped into, activate Overwhelm Barrage on top of it, he's then got 8 damage that you can just clear the other field with. Not just that, because of ramping early, you can normally play this a turn or 2 early, and that is just devastating when they're trying to build their board and you just keep clearing it. But yeah, Overwhelm Barrage, like, you don't need me to keep talking about it. Every time I put it into a deck, it's just so good. It's one of the best cards in the game right now, and if you're not using it, like, what are you doing? And rounding up our main deck is 1 Palpatine's Return. I mentioned earlier, Force Throw can combo with something. That's this card. So this card reads, play a unit from your discard pile, it costs 6 less. If it's a Force unit, it costs 8 less instead. So you may be thinking, how does this combo with Force Throw? Because Force Throw, maybe they play something out, we can discard any, and I mean any of our Force units. So maybe Savage, Vader, Maul, Palps, Kylo, Darth Maul, absolutely anything. Then do that damage to their side of the field. Then we can play Pounce Return, playing any of them for 8 less, so basically paying 6 of them to then bring them back. Whew! Do you know what's truly insane? On a 7 resource turn, you can actually play Palps. Because if you force throw him out, he's then in the discard pile, right? Activate Pounce Return, you can play at 8 or less, meaning he can then come back out. So the main reason we don't run multiple of these in the main deck, we have got some in the side deck, is because we're trying to ramp as fast as we can, and if we get multiple of these in the hand, it can slow us up. However, if you're playing against like a deck that's slowing you down, then multiple of these need to come in. So, that's our main deck done. Let's crack on to this side deck. Kicking things off in the side deck is 2 Colonel Yalarans. So, what does this card do? When you play a green unit, heal 1 damage from your base. Also includes him, by the way. So the reason he's in here, maybe you're playing an aggression deck that's just doing too much damage too fast. Play him out, get that extra healing in. Talking of healing, the next one is a Reinforcement Walker. 6/9 stat line, when played and on attack, look at the top card of your deck, either draw that card or discard it and heal 3 damage from your base. Yeah, again, this is in here for those games that are maybe getting a bit too close, maybe an aggression deck that's a bit too aggressive. Get more healing in there. Our next side deck is a 9 cost that has 1 Relentless. So this card's in here for those games that are slowing up or maybe need that little bit more bigger oomph towards the end. So what does it do? It's an 8/8 and the first event played by each opponent each round loses all abilities. I normally bring this card in against the control decks, and you could argue have multiple of these in here because control decks, of course, like their Super Laser Blast, the Power of Dark Sides, their Rivals Fools, so being able to just nullify whatever the first one they play is just so valuable. The next card in our side deck is a 1 cost and has 3 Force Lightnings. I really like this card, but I just don't see it ever being played. So what does it do? Choose a unit. It loses all abilities for this phase. Then if you control a force unit, pay any number of resources and deal 2 damage to the chosen unit for each resource paid this way. I adore this card. Play it out, pick their Super Laser Tech. Their Super Laser Tech loses its ability to go into play as a resource. Maybe they play a Crate Dragon out. You pay your 1, Crate Dragon stings you for that 1 damage, but then its ability is turned off. Then you can pay any number and defeat it. So for 6 resources, if you have a force unit out, this can defeat a Crate Dragon while only doing 1 damage back. How nuts is that? So our next card in the side deck is 2 Force Chokes. I had to put this in here. I mean, it's a Villainy Force deck. This is the most iconic Villainy Force move ever. Had to be in here. What does it do? If you control a force unit, this event costs 1 less to play. So 99% of the time, it's going to cost you 1. And deal 5 damage to a non-vehicle unit. That unit's controller draws a card. So for 1 cost, it's just a nice bit of removal. And rounding up our side deck, I said we got multiple copies of Palps Return, and that is another Palps Return. Like I said in the main deck, it's there for when we play the controlling matchups, or you maybe going through your force units really, really fast. Be able to just bring any of them back from the discard pile early is just crazy good. And like I said, bringing out Palps on 7 resources. Yes, please. So that's our side deck and main deck done. And here's the deck list for those who want it. So for thoughts and matchups, it's really fun to play. It's a different way to play. Ramping out to get all these force units out and then playing all these force synergy cards is so much fun. And playing out your Maul and just boosting him is nuts. Like I said, I get him to an 11/11 early so many times. What's it good against? Aggression's a funny one. If you can get your Hu Yang and Gamoran Retainer out, they really struggle and you can tend to just beat them straight up. But if you don't get that combo, you can struggle a little bit, and that's where our side deck really needs to come in for our healing and our bit of removal. For mid-range, we're actually quite good against mid-range because we ramp there, and by the time they're trying to control our board, that's fine because it slows up to bring out all these big units. Against control, it depends how you play and depends how they play. It does hurt when like you ramp to play out these big units and they just play 1 card and defeat it constantly, so we can struggle a bit against control. But, yet again, our side deck can really help us out. I hope you've enjoyed my Maul deck. Like, I have a lot of fun playing with this one, and I really hope you have fun playing with it as well. As I said in the intro, this is actually my last deck before Set 4 drops. Let me know in the comments what you think about Set 4. I'm actually getting pretty hyped with it. I was alright with it. Like, I was fairly hyped, but now recently, my hype's through the roof. I cannot wait. Let me know in the comments what decks I should be making once Set 4 drops, and any other decks you want me to revisit with Set 4, boosting them up. Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully I shall see you in the next one.